How's it going, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of the Mavs Step Back Podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Drew Johnson. You can find both of us on X, formerly known as Twitter, even though I'm still not going to change the bird on the graphic. I refuse to. But you can find
Never.
me at Dalton_Trigg. You can find DJ at Coach Drew 33. Guys, we have a couple things to discuss today. We're going to do a general overview of the FIBA World Cup, where Slovenia stands, where other Mavs players ended up in it, and how Team USA got sent home earlier than what anybody anticipated. They didn't even make it to the FIBA World Cup final. And we got some other Mavs narratives we're going to discuss as we are about 3 weeks away from training camp starting. So lots of good stuff coming up. Let's get this thing started.
Finds Hardaway. Maneuvers away from a closeout. Luka maneuvers away from a closeout. And that is about the best dunk we've ever seen out of Luka. This is a holy moment right here.
It's nice, though. It's real nice.
Been a timeout call, but we ain't going nowhere. We're going to let you look at this again a time or two. Look at that face.
Hi, this is Luka Doncic, and you're listening to the Mavs Step Back Podcast.
All right, I got to be honest. I don't even know if that Manscaped sponsorship is even still running. I may need to take that off that graphic. So I don't think I'm going to mark it as a paid advertisement thing on YouTube because I just don't think that's I think that's more me not taking it off the graphic than it is something that's still running. But anyway, FIBA World Cup. We had, going into it, we kind of knew that Slovenia was, they were underdogs. I mean, they had Luka, the best player in FIBA, in my opinion. But they were lacking talent. He's the only NBA caliber guy on that team. And, it was going to be a tough road for them no matter what. And Luka played pretty good. They've hit a skid. They lost to Germany, not this weekend, but the last weekend. And then going into the quarterfinals, they played Canada. And they lost against Canada. Luka got ejected. Dylan Brooks got ejected. There was a bunch of drama there. And then yesterday they played Lithuania. And they lost to Lithuania, fairly, I think it was like 15, 16-point loss or something like that. So Slovenia has been reeling here lately. They're tired. They're outmatched. Luka's doing all he can, but all he can isn't enough. So they've kind of fizzled out. They will have their final game of the World Cup against Italy. And, then they'll be done. It's just basically, a consolation game or whatever. So it's been fun watching it. They had a good run up until this latest stretch where they've just been outmatched and tired. But Canada and USA, that was the two teams I thought we'd end up seeing in the FIBA World Cup final. And as it turns out, we are getting Canada versus USA, but it's going to happen in the third place game because Canada got put out by Serbia, which is, Serbia is good. Don't get me wrong. But when I heard that Nikola Jokic wasn't going to be playing for them in the World Cup, I was like, okay, well, they're beatable. But they played really well. And now they find themselves in the final. And Germany, we talked about this before we got on, but, they were up huge on Team USA in the friendly match before all this got started. And Team USA made the big comeback and ended up winning it. Well, Germany got their revenge. They won by 2 against Team USA earlier today. And, of course, the day I'm wearing my USA basketball shirt is when they get upset. But, we talked about this before the tournament started. This Team USA squad is not what we're accustomed to. Like it's yes, they were good. Yes, they were still favored as they should have been because of all the NBA talent. but we knew they were beatable. They had shown signs of that. And sure enough, that caught up to them today. And Germany, who has just been on an incredible run, I think that friendly loss to USA and the friendly matches or whatever, that was the only game they've lost all summer, I'm pretty sure. Mm-hmm. So they've been incredible. Dennis Schroeder, as much as he can rub people the wrong way, he's been great. Daniel Theus, who else? They got the Wagner guy from the Orlando Magic.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got some good talent on that team, and they've been playing really well. But I mean, this is kind of what we should have expected, I guess, since we sent the JV squad, I would call it, versus the varsity squad with like LeBron and Steph and KD, all those guys. So I mean, what are your initial thoughts on how it ended up for Team USA, and what should we expect for the Olympics next year?
Well, you really have to look at the way that these national teams are treated by each individual country. You have countries that take great pride, like, not that we don't, but they take tremendous pride in international play. And what you're seeing is teams that are just so together. And I think the reason for that is because they are built over years, whereas this team that we saw with Team USA was just kind of assembled. I mean, I could be wrong, but that's the impression that I got out of it.
I feel the same way.
That's the way it's always been, really. I mean, that's the way it's always been. And that's the reason why, this isn't the first time that we've had hiccups in international play. You go back to when, LeBron, Carmelo, and D Wade and them were rookies, and they were thrown into the mix. They weren't ready. These guys weren't ready for this either. Now, thankfully, this wasn't as grand of a scale as the Olympics. But, these teams, they're produced over a long period of time, and they play like it. They play together, and you really just have to outmatch them in terms of talent in order to just walk on the floor and beat them. And we didn't have, that much more talent than they do. And the fact of the matter is, international play is getting better and better. International players are getting better and better.
Sure is.
So we need to do one of two things. We either need to A, start building this thing like everyone else does, or B, our super duper stars need to actually participate.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it doesn't need to be, wish-washy. If you're going to put young guys out there and you're going to roll with that and not go the LeBron, Steph route and all that, that's fine. But you need to, when the Olympics come around next summer, roll out the same squad, maybe change out a few different players, but let these young guys stay together and develop together. And, maybe, I don't know if Steve Kerr is the right coach, for this team. I saw I follow some Warriors media people on Twitter, and they were commenting on it throughout the whole game. It's like, oh, this looks familiar. Dennis Schroeder, shredding us and not making any adjustments. It's like, that's what happened to the Warriors in the Lakers series in the playoffs 4 months ago. And I'm like, okay, well, there's a common denominator there. So
Kerr's a great coach. He is a great coach, but it's like we've said all along, international play is completely different. And I would like to see us have a coach at the helm that has tremendous experience here. I know.
And that's a good point too. It's not saying that Steve Kerr isn't a good coach, but you have it's like Rick Carlisle. Rick Carlisle is an amazing coach, but he wasn't the right coach for the youth movement that the Mavs were wanting to bring in. Mm-hmm. There needed to be a change there. So, I mean, coaching a lot of times, and you know this, a lot better than I do, but fit plays a big factor too. And I just don't know if Steve Kerr is the right fit, for Team USA, especially, if they're going to stick with, all these younger guys. I don't know. We'll just have to see. But I mean, hats off to Germany. They have been killing it. I feel great for Dirk. He's had a really cool summer with the Hall of Fame stuff, and he's an ambassador for FIBA, so he's been over there, doing his ambassador duties or whatever. And now Germany is in the World Cup final against Serbia. So that should be a really fun game. Even though it's a third place game, USA versus Canada is really intriguing. I'm I'm very interested in seeing how that one goes over, because, Canada has just as much, well, not just as much, but almost just as much NBA talent on that roster as Team USA does. So
It's comparable for sure.
Yeah, so that's going to be a really good match. What do you think about that one?
I have to wonder if anyone's going to get into a fist fight with Dylan Brooks.
Boxing.
That's my main thing. Yeah.
He broke out the boxing gloves the other day when they beat Slovenia.
A wild, weird way of getting them hyped up. But, I bet it really plays into Dylan Brooks's whatever he's got going on upstairs.
Can't tell him anything anymore. He got $90 million from the Rockets. You can't tell him anything anymore.
It's just wild, isn't it? It's wild. It's a wild guy.
He made some comment about being the best perimeter defender in the world, in the NBA, in the world, everything. I was thinking and I promise everybody, I'm not being a hater when I say this, but he might not even be the best perimeter defender on his national team, because Lou Dort is on that team.
Yeah.
and Lou Dort is a stud.
Getting under people's skin. He kind of takes what Draymond does and he takes it too far. And
Draymond antics without the Draymond accolades.
Yes. Well, without the Draymond skill as well. Cause Draymond semi makes that thing run. Dylan Brooks is not that guy. He's not that guy. And he just, I don't know. I can't stand him. I'm sorry. I have to say that aloud. I cannot stand Dylan Brooks. I can't.
He is all time. And look, it was really funny because yesterday somebody posted a fake quote by Luka was talking, in his country language. So he was talking in an interview, and people were trying to translate it and everything. And somebody posted a fake translation of it, and he was just like saying that Luka was saying Dylan Brooks was all bark and no bite, and let's see how he feels being down by 20 in Dallas. I've got something for him. And it was a fake quote, but I was just thinking, that's definitely something that has gone through Luka's mind.
Well, absolutely. And you know what? Dylan Brooks is going to take it seriously, because Dylan Brooks he's that type of guy.
He will 100% take it seriously, and it's not going to matter either, because the Mavs are just light years better than the Rockets, in my opinion, especially now, after the roster moves that have been made over the summer. But look, the FIBA World Cup stuff, it's been great. I love international basketball, but it's also nice to have that, the gap filler. And look, I know we've got the WNBA stuff going on. I know we've got MLB going on. It's not like there's no sports on, but as far as the closest thing to NBA basketball, it's been nice to have, that international FIBA World Cup stuff to kind of fill the gap for us a little bit until we got to training camp, or close to training camp. And, football's back too, so that helps fill the gap a little bit too. So I'm excited. I think the Mavs are in for a really interesting preseason and start of the season. I don't know if you've seen the little clips and pictures of Derek Lively that the Mavs have been posting, but it looks like since our interview with him during Summer League that they've just locked him in the weight room.
What needs to happen, man? He's just transforming into Tyson Chandler. Tyson Chandler is just living with him in the hyperbolic time chamber right now. For anyone who doesn't watch that.
I saw those clips, and that was my first thought. Is you know what? As soon as we got done with that interview, it's like they just locked him in the weight room with Tyson Chandler for the last 2 months, and now he's he looks like he's added some more weight. He's still just as springy. I'm excited. When we talked to him, he was very open, about saying, yes, he wanted to be the Mavs starting center. That's something that he quote unquote circled on his board, but he also admitted that he wasn't there yet. Like he had to go out and prove it and do it, perform against real NBA talent in training camp and all that stuff. So his head is in the right spot. He's got to go out and earn it. But I mean, from what I've seen this summer, I feel like there's a better chance of him starting from day one than, probably what it was 2-3 months ago. So I'm extremely excited to see how training camp goes, how the preseason goes. The Mavs, they've got 4 preseason games. They play the Timberwolves twice in Abu Dhabi, and then they play Real Madrid, Luka's former team, in Spain. And then they come back to the States and they finish things out. I forget who they're playing in that that 4th preseason game, but it's at American Airlines Center. And then next thing you know, it'll be opening night, and we'll have Luka versus Wemby for the first Mavs game of the season, which will be incredible. So I am super excited. What do you think about, Lively's chances of him a few months ago?
You went out. What did you ask?
No, I was saying, what do you think about Lively's chances of starting now versus when we talked to him a few months ago?
Well, I think just given his progression, it gives him a much better chance. I mean, obviously we've seen, the physical benefits of what he has put himself through, but also what we have to consider is we haven't made any moves for a starting center, and I don't know that we're going to. I think that the front office might be wanting to ride with Lively, and honestly, I'm here for it. It sounds great to me. Because the sooner we throw him into the fire, the sooner that he's going to get acclimated. And whenever he gets acclimated, he'll be able to play his role to perfection. Remember, we're not asking him to go out there and give us 30. We're asking him to go out there, give us a few block shots, give us double-digit rebounds, and give us, someone
and
who
just
can protect the
and
rim.
just stay attached, on the perimeter.
Yeah.
You don't have to. We're not asking him to be just like an all-world defender from day one, but his length and his versatility, if you can just stay in front of guys or stay attached enough to where even if you do get beat, you can block them from behind or something like that. All of that stuff is valuable. All that stuff is, that's some little things here and there that the Mavs didn't have last year.
Yeah.
It's like with Christian Wood, and I'm sure you've kept up with all the drama that's going on there in the last few days, but he signed with the Lakers, and then on his way out, he kind of gave us a glimpse of, in my opinion, what the reasons were the Mavs didn't even bother trying to re-sign him, because, he kind of took some indirect shots at Jason Kidd. He alluded to the fact that the Mavs had done something to him and all that on his way out. And, I don't know. I'm not going to speculate too much on that because, he wasn't very direct and he didn't really give very many details about what happened. But you see and hear stuff like that, and it's like, okay, well, was that the kind of stuff that was going on in the locker room as well throughout the season? And, is that why the vibes weren't even before the Kyrie trade? When they got Kyrie, the vibes they improved a little bit. People, all the guys on the team love Kyrie, and he was playing well and everything. But even before that trade, like the team, I keep using the word vibes because that's the only thing I can think of. But like the morale, the overall feeling around the team was just down from where it was a year before. And the only 2 real differences, or 3 differences: 1, Jalen Brunson was gone, and 2, Christian Wood and JaVale McGee. And now JaVale McGee, just 1 year into a 3-year contract, he's got the boot. He's been stretched and waived. Christian Wood, they didn't even bother to try and re-sign him. And now it's September, and he's just now signing a veteran's minimum deal with the Lakers. So that shows you how he's, viewed across the league. So I just feel like Derek Lively's attitude plays just as much of a factor here as his overall talent, in my opinion. I think him even though he's super young, he's 19 years old, his head's in the right place, he has the physical tools. I think if he comes out in training camp and shows all of that to Kidd and the rest of the coaching staff, he has a good shot of starting. And I think the Mavs will be better off overall throughout the season than they were last year because of that. Because the way you approach things and your attitude toward it, that all matters. And I think that's the biggest thing, and not just the talent overall being better this year for the Mavs with Grant Williams, Seth Curry, Dante Exum, they got Derek Jones Jr. They got a handful of guys that are going to help. Omax Prosper, who we've talked to here recently. All those guys are great, but it's like the attitude too. Everybody seems to be more on the same page heading into training camp than what it was last year. Last year it seemed like JaVale McGee and Christian Wood were more, focused on whether they were starting or not.
Yeah, they were more internal. And the thing is, you can have all the talent in the world, and I've seen this at my level, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you ain't got it mentally, if you are not locked in mentally on the goals of the team, it's not going to work. There's not going to be a fit. Okay. And it's like you were saying earlier with coaching, it's the same thing with players. If you don't fit, it isn't going to work.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has to do with mentality. And, I don't know what happened. You and I were not in that locker room. But just given what we have heard, it sounds like there was some selfishness amongst those two, specifically with Christian Wood.
Yeah.
And that was honestly something that was of concern whenever we brought Christian Wood in the first place. And, I know that I was like all gung-ho about getting Wood just because of his upside. And if we could make it work, it would have been great.
The talent, it was there. I mean,
yeah, it was there.
He has the talent.
It's still there. But if he's not willing to let go, so to speak, of his personal agenda and put all of his energy towards the team's agenda, then he'll never be successul on the team.
Yeah, I mean,
the reason he was successful on the Rockets is because there was no team agenda.
Yeah, I agree. And look, and it's like we've talked about this several times. When he was starting, you saw a different level of energy from him on the defensive end. He was, I won't say he was good defensively, but it was passable. It was okay. It was enough defensively to where you could justify continuing to start him if Jason Kidd had done so. But, when he was coming off the bench, that same level of defense just was not there. Like it was like Olay defense.
Mm-hmm.
That's ultimately what led, to him not getting the minutes that he thought he deserved. So, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, the Mavs, they technically traded a first-round pick in that draft, last year's draft, to get him, but they were going to take Hardy with that pick if they had kept it regardless, and they still got Hardy by trading into the early second round. So it's really a wash. I mean, they didn't lose anything. They didn't gain anything. It is what it is. But, I think – and look, all these guys are professionals, so they're not going to just straight up come out and, name names directly so people can say for sure what they're talking about. But, it's like Mark Cuban, for example. He went on the Patrick Beverley's podcast the other day, and he was talking about last year's failure following a Western Conference Finals appearance, and he specifically said, like, the reason we failed last year was not because of Luka and Kyrie, which is what you and I have talked about several times. It was about guys on that roster not accepting their roles.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at the two main guys that aren't going to be there this next season, that stuff has happened in the last few months. And I mean, even though Cuban didn't say it directly, I mean, it doesn't take much to put two and two together. He's talking about Wood and McGee. I mean, that's just it is what it is. He didn't come out and straight up say that, but that's what he meant. And I mean, you can connect the dots there, and it's unfortunate the way it played out, but I think the Mavs are in a better place now going forward, and I'm really excited to see what happens in training camp and what happens in these preseason games overseas too. So I'm really excited about it, and I'm ready to get things rolling again. And guys, we got some special guests in the works. I'm not going to announce anything right now because we still have to finalize the details, but we should have a few more really special pods here before the season gets underway on October 25th. So, guys, we appreciate y'all checking in with us. As always, be sure to like, rate, and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms, and leave us a review. Subscribe to us on YouTube. I told Drew this the other day, but it's like, I don't know what happened, but that Omax Prosper pod that we put on YouTube, it just like went through the roof, and like we've gained like over like 1,500 new subscribers on YouTube here lately. So salute to you guys. Shout out to you guys. We appreciate that. Keep them coming. We're trying to get our watched hours up as high as we can, so maybe we can start doing some other cool stuff on YouTube. So appreciate it, guys. Y'all have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend, and we will see you sometime middle of next week.
Thanks, guys.